Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's webinar. I'm Don Baldwin, Director of Marketing at eTrainETC. I'm joined by Natalie Gregono, VP of Project Management at eTrainETC, as well as Bill Cornelius, CEO of eTrainETC. I did want to let everyone know that we are recording today's webinar. So just to give you a heads up, today's webinar is pretty interesting. We have a group of healthcare professionals here that are currently using eTrainETC's tools. I do want to encourage participation. And if you have any questions, please put those in the Q&A box below, and we will get those answered for you expeditiously. We have 30 minutes of your time here today, so we promise to finish up on time. As I said, we do have a group of healthcare expert panelists join with us here today. And I would like to introduce Frank Karluk, consultant for DLH, Dr. Strasser, orthopedic surgeon and CEO of MedEdge Surgical, Bob Armstrong, executive director, Centaura Center for Healthcare Simulation and Immersive Learning, Virginia Health Sciences at Old Dominion University. So I do want to take a moment here for each of them to go a little bit more in depth about themselves. Frank, would you like to go first?
Sure. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. My name's Frank Karluk. I work for DLH Corporation. That's not DHL. I don't deliver packages. I'm a paramedic. I have a master's degree in emergency management. I served 21 years, 6 months, and 3 days in the United States Army, various assignments from a flight medic to a military CBRNE team medic on that rapid response team. Just prior to 9/11, and if you're a conspiracy theorist and you follow those documentaries or mockumentaries, however you want to think of them, there's one called Loose Change, and I can speak by personal experience that there's one thing in that documentary on Loose Change about a plane that was allowed to fly after they were all grounded on 9/11, and I was on that particular plane, so there's one thing on that documentary that's true. A plane was allowed to fly after all planes were grounded on that day, and I was on that plane. I finished my career with a short tour in Afghanistan, assigned to the U.S. Marine Corps with MARSOC. It was supposed to be a short tour. It was supposed to be 3 days. I refer to it as the Gilligan's Island tour because that 3-day tour turned into the entire deployment. So I spent a year with MARSOC. Through that entire time in the military, over 30 years total involved in the medical field in some way. I came to DLH as a contractor after retiring in support of the Defense Health Agency JPC-1 medical simulation portfolio, managing the multi-million-dollar medical simulation research and development portfolio. Thankfully, when that contract ended, DLH was looking to expand into medical simulation, and I was able to move into a corporate role, managing the business development area, concentrating on building medical simulation for DLH. And that's where my relationship with eTrain was formed, and we continue to try to build business into the microsimulation area and brought us to where we are today, trying to teach the world everything there is to know about microsimulations and take over the world. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Frank. Followed by Dr. Strasser.
Yeah, my name is Nick Strasser. I'm a orthopedic surgeon in Nashville, Tennessee. I predominantly do foot and ankle surgery, but have kind of covered all areas of orthopedics. My background is I work with residents and medical students doing some teaching and instruction, and also started a podcast, newsletter, YouTube channel focusing on some medical education for those who work in medical device. And so got in contact with Bill and Natalie kind of fortuitously, and discovered eTrain as I was looking at how to expand some of the education piece with medical surgical training, particularly thinking of like med tech and how you learn new techniques or learn new procedures, the step-by-step process. So it's been a fun journey as we've developed some of the some simulations, microsims, and I'm kind of learning kind of along the way, but how to use the tools to be able to basically take the learner through an entire procedure as they go through, and then understand like the steps and understand why we're doing what we're doing through each step of the way. And it's been really fun to be part of that, and we've done some different things from a med tech perspective. We've also had a summer intern that we put together a simulation for, because we do a lot of athletic care, so looking at response to some of the EPA procedures that we have for like the athlete on the sidelines, and some of the unique challenges that you face with somebody that goes down into, say, cardiac arrest, with like, what do you do with the helmet? What do you do with the shoulder pads? Like those kind of step-by-step processes. So we've been working through some things there as well, and that's been it's been a fun journey. So relatively new to the whole process, but certainly excited for the opportunity to kind of change how some of the way we can do education. And my goal is kind of for people that get into the OR for the first time, that they feel like it feels very familiar. All the steps feel very familiar, even if they haven't necessarily like had the instruments in the hand, they know where things are going to go.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And last but not least, we have Bob Armstrong.
So, hi, everybody. I'm Bob Armstrong. I run the Simulation Center at formerly Eastern Virginia Medical School. As of 1 July, we're part of a significant medical center that's merged together with Old Dominion University here in Norfolk. We're now called the Virginia Health Sciences at Old Dominion University. So our Sim Center has been around for several decades, and we're all about education, from undergraduate medical education all the way up through graduate residency, and then community training, where we teach life support courses and things of that matter. So we're a full service Sim Center, and because of the needs that we had trying to fill the different modalities of learning and gaps that we found in those modalities of learning, that's what led us to find eTrain several years ago. And we've been with Bill and his team as paying customers of the eTrain product here for several years now. My background is not medicine, interestingly enough. I'm an engineer and a computer scientist, but I've been involved in simulation since really the 80s. I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps, and at the end of my time in the Marine Corps, ran all the Marine Corps' modeling and simulation-based training programs. Did a lot of DoD modeling and simulation work, everything from what the Navy was doing to ballistic missile defense modeling, and then was recruited into healthcare. And it's been a very fruitful opportunity for me. Simulation to simulation, the utility of it is just the thing that's a little bit different, and the application space, of course. But it's been somewhat fruitful, I guess. I mean, I'm here doing this and enjoying what I'm doing and having a big impact, and I'm very participatory in the Society for Simulation and Healthcare, where I was the president in 2020. So not the best year to be president of anything, but nonetheless, we got to the end of it. So I'm happy to be here and happy to talk to you about how much I love the micro simulations that we're creating in eTrain.
Thank you, all of you, for your introductions. Okay, so let's get started here with some of today's discussion. If each of you all could chime in here and tell us a little bit about your organization, a little bit more in depth, obviously, because the introductions were about yourself. Tell us a little bit more about your organization and how you all on an organizational level are using eTrainETC, and then you can go into a more in-depth look of how you personally are using eTrain. We'll let Bob start off this time.
Okay, so again, I mentioned that we're a full service simulation center. So we have a massive standardized patient program that does everything from your conversational patient engagements all the way through sensitive exams, the pelvic, rectal exams, breast exams. We teach physical exam as well. We also, I own the Tidewater Center for Life Support, which is a AHA center, training center. We teach all the AHA courses as well as the American College of Surgeons Advanced Trauma Life Support courses. So we're very involved in education, and our partner institution is Centera Norfolk General, which is the region's only level 1 trauma center, and our region has about 1.75 million people in it. So we've got a large collection of people that need training, both in the practitioner space as well as in the student and learner space. What we're using and building microsims within eTrain to do is, like I mentioned a little in the intro, is to fill some gaps in the learning continuum that we're seeing. While our simulation center is very capable, it still is a restrictive space, meaning that people the courses have to be scheduled here, and there's only this much time to come in here and to work on the activity. And the activities that the students are involved in prior to coming to the simulation center are more typically lecture-based. What they're missing is that, okay, how do you prepare for what you're going to do that's much more hands-on? So again, it's thinking through the process of how you're going to apply the knowledge that you learned in lecture to the physical space where you're going to have to touch a patient, where you're going to have to manipulate instruments and things of that nature. So we're building microsimulations that help to prepare students for those types of engagements here. That's just one way. I also use eTrain to build training tools for my own team. We're, as well as being a large simulation center, we actually are a business of sorts, and we sell our product to about 115 different customers located across the country. And so when I send my people out to go do that kind of work, I need them very well prepared. And so we're building tools that help keep my folks training current, and also provide refresher, also just-in-time training. If somebody's maybe not traveled for some of this work in, say, 60, 90 days for some reason, now we need to get them back up to speed real quick. And so they're really good at the task, but they just need a refresher. So we're using it in that way too. So those are typically kind of the ways that we're leveraging eTrain in our shop. And I'll stop there, let somebody else participate.
Okay, and thank you again, Bob. Frank, would you like to chime in?
Sure. DLH stands for Defense Logistics and Health, and that's an antiquated abbreviation for what the company stood for, well, still stands for. Primarily, historically, we did the logistics aspect of what the government needed. But as the company evolved, we realized that there were gaps all over the government that needed help from civilian agencies, from companies, from corporations to fill. So that's where the medical simulation aspect came from, and where my position was created. So we've aimed to fill gaps for the government as they release those solicitations, and my concentration is for medical simulation and training. So as these gaps are identified, we've aimed to add eTrain and the microsimulation platform into as many of the contract bids that we push forward for government solicitations that we can, for training of military forces around the world, and for the direct protection of our governmental leaders. We're currently working at designing ways to implement this type of training into areas where it would not have been originally thought of to have a fit, or maybe it wasn't what Bill and his team have originally intended it to be used for. So the example, the TV statement straight from the headlines we hear all the time. So when we talk about like the things that we see on TV, we see on a regular basis law enforcement mishaps, the problems with law enforcement making poor decisions in the situations that they're placed in, having to make those split-second decisions. We've done proof of concept things where we can do reinforcement training with police officers for that split-second decision making, weapon systems training, Right now, there's conflicts around the world, whether it's US forces or foreign military partners that are involved in conflict that the US may be assisting them with, where they're receiving weapon systems where they may or may not have ever received training on them, and we may not be able to get to them. So to provide weapon systems training, that just-in-time training that Bill just referenced, if we can provide that microsimulation training to them that's screen-based, telephone-based, computer-based, tablet-based, VR goggle-based, doesn't matter which platform, because we're fortunate that the eTrain microsim platform is so agnostic that it can run on any platform we throw in front of them, that they can receive that training before the weapon system actually gets there, before that piece of equipment actually gets there, that they're ready to play with the weapon system is probably a bad term to use, to operate that weapon system as soon as it's placed into their capable hands, because we've made them capable through microsimulation training. We've gotten them that much better, ready to be in the fight before the tool is placed in their hands. So we're trying to stay ahead of the power curve, ahead of the front, and place them into the best possible situation to be ready to fight.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Frank. And Dr. Strasser, you're next.
Yeah, so I think I'd echo what really has been said already, which is, where I'm using it specifically is going to be more in the surgical realm. So as we, if you get, say you get a new procedure, a new technique, whether you're a resident or whether you're a medical sales rep, you kind of have to go through the training process of how to use that, how to use the instrumentation. And traditionally that looks like you're reading a text like a PDF or a technique guide. There is maybe a little video that you watch. Sometimes you are doing a cadaver lab, which gets kind of expensive. And then you're kind of thrown into the real world. And so the idea is to bridge those gaps so that you have a tool that you can go through to demonstrate your knowledge and competency and confidence of that particular technique. So you go through and we design it in such a way that you have to understand which instrument you're going to use and when. And what I like so much about this platform is I can take videos that are already made, or I can take pictures of what we refer to as an instrument tray, and I can create highlightable objects so that they have to go in, and as they're going through the procedure, you prompt them with hey, the surgeon runs into X, Y, and Z, what instrument does he need? And they have to go in and select where exactly that instrument is going to be. So it makes them understanding of the technique. They have to know where everything is, so that they can they kind of have build that memorization that you sometimes develop in the setting, and then be able to pivot out of that scenario. And the other thing that we run into a lot of times in the operating room is a lot of circumstances or issues that come up have been encountered before. So now we can identify those objects by talking to other surgeons and other people that work within the medical sales that are more experienced, and we then prompt the learner through that. So we bring up that scenario. What happens if your drill bit goes here? How are you pivoting out? What instrument are you pulling out to fix that? So trying to avoid the scenario where they're calling somebody else in the middle of the case saying, hey, I just ran into this. They've already been through it because they've been able to do it on their phone, on their tablet, on their computer. They can do it between cases. They can do it as they're prepping for a surgery. They don't have to go to a special course for this. So this isn't something to replace those things. They're still valuable. It's to try to bridge that gap between the book and the hands-on experience.
Thank you. Awesome. And now that we know a little bit about you individually as well as your organization and how you're currently using eTrainETC, it would be fantastic if you could tell us a little bit about your current sims and what future sims you have in store. And then you can finish that off by letting us know what are the importances of these different sims that you have created, and looking forward for the future sims. We'll let you go again, Dr. Strasser.
Ooh, all right. So we've been doing, most of the things we've been doing have been around surgical techniques. So where we kind of started was taking a very, I would say basic, but kind of a basic case that we do pretty frequently, an ankle fracture, and keeping it relatively, I'll say, industry agnostic. So, you know, everybody kind of has their standard instrumentation to fix a broken ankle, for example. And so we built out the storyboard, and this was like our first go for me. So it took us a little bit of time to kind of get things going as I learned the platform and and the tools that are available. But through that, we were able to build out kind of from beginning to end, an ankle fracture module. So you go through and you have to select what your approach is going to be, what kind of structures are going to be at risk, and then as your step-by-step process, what size drill bit, where are you putting your plate, like all these things that you kind of run into a standard ankle fracture. So that's what we've kind of started off with, and then from there we've pivoted to using more specific techniques. And so you know, specific to like a particular instrumentation and incorporating more video into that as well. I mentioned it earlier, but my summer intern just got done putting together a really nice project. And this was, again, maybe not so much OR experience, but again, the care of the downed athlete. So more specific to sideline emergencies that we can run into, and some of the nuances, you know, because after all, it's like, it is basic life support at the end of the day, but some of the nuances that you may face in that particular setting are going to be a little bit different. So trying to call those specific things out. How do you manage the helmet? How do you manage the chest, the chest when you have shoulder pads on? Who's doing what when you have, you know, all these people involved, and trying to kind of standardize it so that when you have many different people that you maybe don't work with every day, that are coming into this scenario, that they can all go through the same training and basically be on the same page in that process. So those are the big things we've been working on. Don, what was the last question? Sorry, I forgot.
What are you looking forward to in your future sims? Do you have any in store?
I think incorporating video, and then I think incorporating some of the AI into it, and getting a framework and then building out from there. That's what I'm most excited about.
Awesome. We look forward to seeing those. Frank, would you like to take over next?
Sure. If anyone has attended any of the trade shows or conferences that are surrounded or revolving around the military structure and military planning processes, you've heard things such as denied evacuation of the battlefield in future conflicts. So with that in mind, since that has become the buzzword, recently DLH has decided to take a proactive look instead of being reactive in our planning processes. With that denied evacuation being a problem in the future with injuries on the battlefield, we're in the initial stages of a pilot program with a DoD entity to provide sterilized actual patient care cases. Very difficult and complex cases that probably would not have been able to be experienced during the course of the study by all of the medical students or medical practitioners. These cases would be transformed into a microsim learning library that could be used by the DoD entity, eTrain, and DLH to provide for future learning capabilities that would not have been available prior. And this particular study or project has a personal nature to me because while assigned to MARSOC on that last deployment, I was forced to perform thoracic escharotomy on an American service member in the field prior to flight, having never done an escharotomy of any type prior on any person. I knew the definition of an escharotomy, but had never done one. And frankly, I've never seen one done on anything other than a TV show such as ER in, I think that was like the 80s when ER was on. But this American service member would not survive the flight over the mountains because of where we were. We had to go above normal flight altitudes. So 5-minute telephone call to a surgeon. I was now credentialed to do this procedure on the thorax of this service member that would normally be done in the perfect environment. by a surgeon. So this procedure was well out of my scope of practice as a flight medic, but it had to be done for this service member to survive. So with having this microsim training available, and we keep referring to it as anywhere, anytime, just-in-time training available, it could have eased my fear a little bit. I don't think I would have done this training at the patient's side, like, okay, this guy needs an escharotomy of his thoracic body. Let me pull out my phone and see if I can find an eTrain training module on how to do this while the guy's sitting here having problem breathing. Probably not the time to be playing video games on my phone. But if I had this library available, maybe when I heard the guy had circumferential thoracic burns, I would have searched for something on circumferential thoracic burns while we were en route to that point of injury. But quite possibly, if we had that extensive library available to us, maybe it would have been a deployment requirement where the flight medics had to do so many modules a month for CMEs, even though it's outside their scope of practice. Maybe we have to do so many modules per month to complete our CME requirements. So deployed personnel are always going to be pushed beyond their normal limits of their comfort and training. And it's my opinion that training of this type, just being exposed to it, we might not have the mechanics down, we might not have the motor function down, but if we can understand the procedure and why we're doing the procedure and the steps involved in the procedure, okay, it might not be perfect, but does it make the difference in that service member's life? Is it going to bring them to that higher echelon of care that can maybe correct the mistakes that I made and save this person's life and give them another day on this planet? It's a good thing. And in the case that I did that thoracic escharotomy, the surgeon said I did it okay, told me never do it again, and the person lived, but he reiterated to me, don't ever do it again. So deployed personnel are always going to be pushed beyond their limits of comfort and training. It's my opinion that training of this type and putting it into a library is only going to make it better and make this gap of training a little bit narrower for future service members and hopefully bring people home alive. So that's my opinion on how this can make things better. And I think that this pilot is going to push the envelope further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. And Bob Armstrong.
Sure, and I know we're running short on time, so I'll make this fairly quick. We've developed PPE, donning and doffing training, and catheterization training modules. We're working on modules to train our standardized patient educators, or excuse me, our standardized patients in the performance of these sensitive exams. So rectal exams, pelvic exams, breast exams. We're also building modules around all the physical exam components so that the learners can then just kind of get those steps down. Again, it's all for us, it's all about filling a gap and preparing folks for the students for what they're going to have with us when they come into our center, or to help our people perform what they're going to perform as part of the learning cycle with the learners that way. I'm really looking forward to the AI component of this. We've got over 700 training cases that we use for our conversational SPs that I'm really looking forward to narrowing those down to probably about 150 of them so that we can incorporate them as cases that will help the students to prepare for those types of activities as well. So we're really looking forward to that. That's an exciting opportunity and an exciting option coming down the pipe from eTrain. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, all three of you. Next, I want to have Natalie speak about a study that was actually done by Dr. Normand and a few of her colleagues at the UT Health Houston McGovern Medical School. It's extremely interesting. Natalie?
Thank you, Don, and thank you so much to our wonderful panel. I will briefly cover this. because we're at time. We wanted to mention Dr. Norman's study along with her colleagues at UT Health Houston McGovern Medical School. They built microsimulations with the eTrain platform, and they studied the virtual learning of endocrine education, evaluating the effectiveness of online simulation for medical students. They then requested that the medical students complete a survey. And in that survey, I'll just run through the 3 bullet points under the results, in which 84% of the students responded that it helped them have a better understanding of the material. 88% said that it helped them apply the material to clinical practice, and 86% said that it helped them identify gaps in their knowledge. In our follow-up to you after attending this webinar, which we are grateful that you did so, we will send you this study for further interest. And also we will send you a link to our frequently asked questions, which are, in a nutshell, really what is a microsim? And it's a virtual simulation in which people are making critical decisions and applying their knowledge in settings. And there is robust data analytics behind our platform so that you as an administrator can see how your students are performing, as well as the data debrief that they receive after their experiences. Also, you can build microsims out of anything, whether it is a screenshot, a video, custom artwork, digital images, anything that you would like to build out your scenario, and then create choices for the learner to make, as well as assess their confidence. And with that, I'll pass it back to Don, and he can describe our further follow-up with you. And again, thank you to our panel.
Yeah, thanks again, Natalie. Thank you to the rest of the panelists, and thank you everyone else for joining here today. As Natalie said, we will be happy to send that over to you if you are interested in the study. Again, all of, as well as our recorded webinars, are posted on our website as well as our YouTube channel. Our website is eTrainETC.com and our YouTube channel is eTrainETC. Should you have any outstanding questions, please contact us via our website or via the follow-up email that you will receive from me, Don Baldwin. You'll see it'll be don.baldwin@etrainetc.com. For sake of time, we don't want to go over too much here, so please send over some questions to us via email, and I will be sending up a follow-up for a scheduled personalized demo. Again, we want to thank everyone for coming and hope to speak with you soon. Bye-bye.